So dear friends, I welcome you to another session of supply chain analytics. So far we have discussed the basics of supply chain, the need of supply chain management in the changing business scenario. Then we also discussed how analytics can help us in some of the challenges which current supply chain management is facing. And then in last two sessions we are discussing that what are the philosophies which are governing the supply chain management, and in that school of thought we have already discussed one school of thought which is represented as cyclic view of supply chain, where the processes happening at the each stage can be represented by the cyclic view or some kind of cycle. Now today we will start the another very important concept of supply chain, which is known as push pull view of the supply chain. Now here in the supply chain you see some of the part is represented in green and some of the part is represented in the red. In a complete supply chain, starting from the supplier source to the customer end, you have some of the processes which are known as push processes and some of the processes which are known as pull processes. As the name represents, pull processes are those processes which are pulled, and customer is at this end pulling the products from the supply chain. So these are the pull processes. On the other hand, in case of push processes, the products are pushed to the supply chain. So demand is there or not there. These products are forced to the supply chain, and pull processes, as the name indicates, are there because demand is there. A customer wants these products and customer wants these products, that therefore customer is pulling these products from the supply chain. So now the take of this push and pull for a supply chain manager is that processes which are happening as a result of pull processes are all reactive because demand is there, therefore supply chain is trying to fulfill the demand. So these processes are reactive in nature. Push processes, because we feel that there will be demand, so these are in anticipation of demand. Demand has not occurred so far, but these are in anticipation of demand, and these processes are more proactive in nature. These are proactive in nature. You feel that demand is going to be there in the future, and therefore you are pushing products into the supply chain, that there will be a customer who will come and he will buy these products. So therefore I should maintain the sufficient inventory, sufficient stocks of these products. So in that anticipation, push processes are taking place. On the other hand, pull processes, you go to a restaurant, and when you go to a restaurant, the food will be ready only when you give an order. So preparation of food and serving the food to a customer is a good example of pull processes. While you go to a grocery store, you find so many chips, so many biscuits, so many other kind of food items are readily available. So these are push processes, that shop owner feels that customers will come to me, and in anticipation of those demand he is stocking the products. But normally you will find that in all supply chains there are few processes which are done in anticipation. So these are push processes, and there are few processes which are done once the order has come. So these are pull processes. Now for a manager, for a decision maker, with the help of the data, with the help of our supply chain analytics, the very important job with respect to push and pull is to identify the correct boundary of these processes. Where should we keep our boundary of push processes and pull processes, which is that point in the supply chain, and probably this is one of the most crucial decision a manager has to make. And nowadays with the help of data driven analysis, with the help of data driven decision making processes, it is very important that you should have a dynamic type of push pull boundary. We in the old age system, in a supply chain, we always used to have a static push pull boundary, but nowadays because we are more into the real time data driven decision making, so it is quite possible that the boundary of push and pull processes may shift. So, we will see with the help of an example that how this boundary of push and pull processes may shift with the help of new data which may be available to us over a period of time. Let us see a generic supply chain where we have manufacturer, a distributor, retailer and customer. Now, the processes up to retailer are push processes, and only at the retailer end the processes are of the pull nature. When customer reaches the retailer, so retailer will give that product to the customer. So, only this thing is happening as a pull process, and rest all the stages are bound by the push processes. When things are happening with push processes, all these places you will have very high level of inventory, because in anticipation you are stocking the products. It is quite possible that over the period of time, when you have more data available with you, you may shift the boundary of pull process to the distributor level, and only up to the distributor level processes may take place as push. And when it is happening, when you are shifting the boundary of push and pull from retailer to the distributor end, it means now retailer is not keeping the inventory in anticipation. Retailer will only be a source of contact to the customer, and whenever order comes, whenever a customer walks to the retailer's place, retailer will further pass this information to the distributor, and then distributor will supply the products to the customer. The example of Dell, when Dell was directly distributing products to the customer before 2006, so Dell was following this type of model where the push pull boundary was at the dealer's end, distributor's end. But now in the present system, when Dell is following the retail distribution, in that particular case the boundary of push pull is shifted to this case. So, you can see the pre 2006 and this is present. So, in the case of Dell, the boundary of push and pull has moved from the distributor to retailer from 2006 to now. So, you have to be, and this is by the way based on all real time data analysis. So, this is a very good example that how your data analytics may help you to shift the boundaries of your push and pull processes, and you cannot be static all the time in present time scenario where you have lot of competition, when you have so much into the market phase that every day things are changing. So, push pull view, as I told you, pull view is reactive and push view in anticipation, it is speculative, and the boundary of push and pull separates the push processes from the pull processes. So, we have seen the role of boundary, that before this and after this the processes are in anticipation, and after this the processes are in reaction to the order of the customer. So, push pull processes, because another important part of the push and pull processes, as we have just discussed here, and it is further written in these slides, that it also gives you an idea of who is going to share the maximum risk in your entire supply chain. You can understand very well those processes which are happening in reaction to the order, the risk in those stages are less, but those stages which are performing processes in anticipation, or those stages which are having the push phenomena, the risk is high in those stages. So, now it is a very important strategic decision in entire supply chain that which stage is going to have how much risk, and many a times you will see that manufacturer needs to keep maximum risk with itself. Sometime in some supply chains, very few supply chains you will find where distributors are keeping the maximum risk, but there will be very few supply chains like Walmart or something like that, where you will find that retailer is keeping the maximum risk, but in most of the cases it is the manufacturer which is keeping the maximum risk, because manufacturer has to prepare everything in anticipation of the order. But there are some very specific examples, particularly those manufacturers dealing in the industrial products like BHEL, making turbines, making transformers. These types of organizations, these types of manufacturers, they even do not keep inventory of those products. These companies start everything in the pull fashion. The example of BHEL, you will find that right from the beginning, right from the manufacturer's end, everything is happening in pull fashion, and very little is happening in anticipation. So, some type of raw material procurement, some type of spare procurement, only those things may happen in push form, but rest of the things are happening entirely in the pull form. So, those products which are industrial marketed, or where the other word can be the unit value is very high. So, those products where the unit value is very high, you normally find the entire processes are happening in the full pull form, and but still in this particular case also the procurement of raw material, procurement of the spare parts and some of the components may happen in anticipation. So, a little bit element of push will also be there here. You see, you cannot have the entire thing starting when the order comes to you. You cannot start going to a mine to get the iron ore for making a turbine only after the order comes. So, you procure the steels, you procure the raw materials, you procure different types of alloys in anticipation that orders will come, and we need to have these materials ready with us whenever order comes. So, you need to have a fine, though these are some of the guiding principles, but still depending upon your own data, depending upon your own information, you will find a suitable boundary of push and pull in your supply chain. So, that is very important, that where is the boundary of push and pull in your supply chain, because this as I mentioned that the relative proportion of push and pull can have an impact on supply chain performance. So, it is very important. If this boundary is not properly selected, it may result in excessive inventory or it may result in stockouts. So, our data, our analytics will help us to appropriately select the boundary that will give us better supply chain performance. Now, another point which we will like to discuss in this session, that is about the competitive and supply chain strategies. You see, supply chain strategy should always support, supply chain strategy is a type of functional strategy, and in an organization there are variety of functional strategies. So, all those functional strategies should support the competitive strategy of the organization. Now, what is the competitive strategy? The competitive strategy is the set of customers' need a firm seeks to satisfy through its products and services. Now, the meaning is how differently, how differently a firm can fulfill the requirement of its customer over its competitors. I require some product for my transportation requirements. Now, there are A, B, C, D, E, 5 different marketers offering different type of transportation solutions. Now, what is that USP of A, what is that USP of B, what is that USP of C, that defines my competitive strategy. So, each one of us, each marketer, each corporate, they look to provide some kind of different solution, some kind of unique solution, the unique way to fulfill the requirement of the customer's need. Walmart is a very popular example, and in our supply chain class we use this example so often. The competitive strategy of Walmart is everyday low pricing. Everyday low pricing, that is the competitive strategy of Walmart. Means Walmart is famous, Walmart provides that you can get large number of products under single roof with the lowest possible price on a particular day. So, that is the competitive strategy of the Walmart. So, now the issue is that how my supply chain supports this competitive strategy, and then only the success of organization comes. So, here we see that there are different types of functional strategies. You have product development strategy, you have marketing and sales strategy, these are the functional strategy, and then there is a supply chain strategy. Supply chain strategy should support my competitive strategy, it should be in sync with my competitive strategy, it should support my competitive strategy so that I can achieve what I want to. Now, supply chain strategy is, it determines the nature of material procurement, transportation, materials, manufacturing of products, creation of services, distribution, and it is also how consistency and support between supply chain strategy, competitive strategy and other functional strategy. Earlier we used to have different silos in organization. Silos means each one of us, if I am in the marketing department, I normally use no communication with my product development department. If I am in product development department, I used to have no communication with my production department. If I am in the production department, I used to have no communication with my HR department. So, we used to live in silos earlier, but nowadays it is not possible to live in silos. We need to have a very strong integration of all functional strategies. Therefore, this value chain represents that right from the new product development to marketing, sales to operations to distribution to services, all these things, all these functional areas need to be integrated, need to be supportive of each other, and finance, accounting, IT, human resource, etc. need to work as supporting to these major functional areas. So, this is the value chain which links the supply chain with the business strategy of the organization, and therefore, we are very much concerned that what type of supply chain strategy we adopt so that the competitive strategy of my organization can be achieved. And for that purpose, we further talk of this strategic fit, where we should have a consistency between customer priorities of competitive strategy and our supply chain capabilities specified by supply chain strategy. Now, it is very, very important to understand that customer priorities, which is determining my competitive strategy, and supply chain capabilities, these things are determining my supply chain strategy. So, my customer priorities, my ability to understand my customer priorities, that is the first important role which analytics will play. The data will help me to understand the priorities of my customer, and it is very simple to understand that over a period of time customer priorities are changing, customer priorities are no longer constant. I am living in India, but in India also the priorities which we used to have about 20 years back or 30 years back, these are no longer the priority at the moment. Our priorities are totally changing. So, priorities do change as we get more exposure, as we have better purchasing power, as we have access to latest technology, particularly IT, particularly internet, and so on. So, all these things are helping me to change the customer priorities. Now, as a marketer, as a supply chain decision maker, if I am not able to capture the changing priorities of my customer, I will not be able to evolve dynamically my competitive strategy. So, the first important role of our supply chain analytics, the data analytics part into the supply chain, is to identify the changing customer priorities, how things are changing. You see, when Japanese movement of quality started, at that time the customer priorities shifted towards getting a quality product, and throughout the world, not only in India, customers started expecting to get Japanese qualities in their product. But over a period of time, almost all the manufacturers throughout the world, they had same technology, same management principles, and they were able to deliver almost competitive quality levels. Then came the Chinese invasion of low cost, and nowadays customer expects that the quality of the product will be as good as Japanese product, but we need price as low as Chinese products. So, priority all of a sudden is changing, and then priorities do change with respect to different market segments. So, as you go from one market segment to another market segment, maybe on any variable, you will find that priorities are changing. Sometime I am purchasing a product only for my status, and sometime I purchase a product for its functional utilities. So, dynamically I need to see what are the customer priorities. So, this is very important to understand that these are the customer priorities which I am getting with the help of my data support. The second is supply chain capabilities. What my supply chain capabilities are, what it can do, and you have the example of Maruti in India. Maruti in India is a very good example that how Maruti reached to tier 1, then to tier 2, and now it is reaching tier 3 cities also of the country. And therefore, the vast infrastructure, the large number of facilities created by Maruti is helping to a great extent to achieve the supply chain strategy of the Maruti. But there are many companies in the country, they have a supply chain strategy in their vision, but the supply chain capabilities are not developed accordingly, and therefore, you are not able to implement, you are not able to execute that supply chain strategy. So, first thing is we want to develop a strategic fit between business strategy, or you can say competitive strategy, which supply chain strategy must support, and this supply chain strategy, the exhibit of this strategy comes in the form of capabilities. Capabilities which we develop, these are the manifestation of supply chain strategy. How do we see that this is the supply chain strategy? So, the capabilities which you are developing, these are actually the manifestation of the supply chain strategy, and this manifestation must match with the competitive priorities or customer needs which are continuously. So, changing customer priorities are to be captured with the help of data. So, this is the first use of data analytics. That data analytics will help us in regularly monitoring the competitive priorities, and you need a very good strategic fit between these two things. Then just to simplify the same statement, we have this statement that competitive and supply chain strategies must have the same goal. It means many a times it is possible that people may not understand the holistic nature of the organization, and when they do not understand the holistic nature, people at their own departmental level, at their own functional level may develop the departmental and functional goals. So, we are warning against these things, that the overall goal of the organization, which is the business goal or the competitive goal and the supply chain goal, must have same objective, must be same thing. And then we further warn that a company may fail because of a lack of strategic fit, or because its processes and resources do not provide the capabilities to execute the desired strategy. So, we need to see that what type of strategy we are developing and how the resources and processes support these strategies. Just to give you an example, because it is becoming very theoretical, how our resources can provide the support to the competitive strategy. For that purpose, if I am talking a very market intensive strategy, my supply chain strategy is market intensive. Now, when I am saying that I want to develop a market intensive strategy, supply chain strategy, the meaning is that I want to open large number of facilities in almost all the corners of my market. So, when I am talking of market intensive strategy or the market dominance strategy, I should have large number of facilities. But then in a city like Delhi, I am opening only 2 retailers. In a city like Mumbai, I am opening 3 retailers. So, this does not qualify to be the market dominance strategy. When I am saying market dominance strategy, in a city like Delhi, there should be more than 50 retailers. In a city like Bombay, there should be more than 30 retailers. Wherever I go in Bombay, wherever I go in Delhi, wherever I go in Kolkata, I should have every corner with my retailer. And Patanjali is a very good recent example that how Patanjali is following this market dominance strategy. And for that purpose, wherever you go in even a small city, every street, every market, you will find distributors, retailers of Patanjali. But if they say that we are going to be the market dominant company, and in whole of the city you have only one distributor, one retailer, then probably your supply chain capabilities are not matching with your supply chain strategy. So, whatever supply chain strategy you have, you need to develop the resources, you need to develop the capabilities in line of that. And this strategy that we should follow market dominance strategy, it should come from your competitive strategy, that my customer prefers those products which are closely available, which are nearly available. They do not want to put lot of efforts in buying those products, and if that is so, I should go for market dominance strategy. And when I go for market dominance strategy, then I should have large number of stores, large number of retail outlets in a particular area. So, all these things must be in sync. If it is there, then my supply chain strategy is in line with my competitive strategy. But I say that my customer follows the convenience way of purchasing, but even in that case my supply chain is following the selective way of distribution. So, my supply chain strategy is not in line with my competitive strategy. So, the very first thing we should understand the competitive priority, that what are the competitive priorities, and according to those competitive priorities I must design my supply chain strategy, and according to supply chain strategy I should develop my supply chain capability. So, data analytics is the part which will help us in dynamically understanding the competitive priorities, and accordingly you can take all this decision. The very good example of use of data analytics in developing the supply chain capability is almost all petroleum companies in our country. Earlier we used to have very limited number of retail outlets of these petroleum companies, to which we call as petrol pumps. But now over a period of time, with the help of available data, these companies realized that number of automobiles, number of cars, number of two wheelers in the country is increasing exponentially, and therefore the requirement of petroleum products are going to increase, and then they realize that we should go for the market dominance strategy. And for that purpose, now you see almost in each street of the city, highways are filled with the petrol pumps of different types of companies. So the earlier very selective strategy was there, but now it is totally changed into the market dominance strategy. So this way you can understand that how data analytics can help us in providing the required strategic fit between the competitive strategy and the supply chain strategy of an organization. Now moving further into this discussion of supply chain strategy and the competitive strategy, we will see that it is a 3-step process. The first process is you need to understand the customer and supply chain uncertainties. So as I am saying that your customer is continuously changing its priorities, and so on, the capabilities of your supply chain also has lot of uncertainties, because in your supply chain there are suppliers, vendors, different type of other members are there, and they all have some component of uncertainty associated with them. So very first thing is to understand the customer and supply chain uncertainty, and to a large extent data analytics may help us in resolving the issue of these uncertainties. You can have good modeling softwares we will discuss, and those things will help us in removing the customer and supply chain uncertainties. Then the second thing is to understand your own supply chain, the capabilities, these capabilities, what are these capabilities? So that is the second part. And third part, you need to link these supply chain capabilities with the customer and supply chain uncertainty. Whatever uncertainties you resolve, you should try to fulfill those things with the help of your supply chain capability. If you can do that, it means you have achieved the strategic fit. So here today we close about this concept of strategic fit. In our next session we will see, with the help of some kind of modeling exercise, that how this strategic fit is achieved, and that will give us, with help of some more practical examples, the usefulness of the data analytics in achieving the supply chain strategic fit with your competitive strategy. Thank you very much.